I know the kiddos don't want to hear it, but back to school is just around the corner, so I want to show you a fun project that you can do with your kids to get ready for the school season. I'm going to show you how to make these fun little backpack charms. You don't have to be good at drawing to make them. You can use any image you want off of the internet. So let me show you how to make these cute little backpack charms.
To start out, we're going to gather all of our supplies. So get your colored pencils, your Sharpies, your template, and your shrink film. Then you are going to line your shrink film up with the image you want to color in, and then you'll start coloring. As you color, you might want to do 2 to 3 layers of colored pencil. Otherwise, if you like the look where lines show through, then one simple layer is fine. Just know that you will probably see your stroke lines. Once you've got your image all colored in, then you'll grab a fine point Sharpie and you are going to trace all of the black lines that were on the template. If you don't trace it perfectly, that's okay, since you aren't going to be seeing the template. You're just going to be seeing what you're tracing. For this one, I wanted to see what would happen if you just colored abstractly on the back, so I flipped my design over and I colored over everything with colored pencil. If you want the design to show up on the back, you can trace with your black Sharpie, otherwise you won't see much of the design on the back. Next up, we're going to grab a scissors and cut around the image. Just do a nice basic outline, don't get too detailed, that'll get a little tricky when you do the shrinking, but if you just do a nice basic outline, it should shrink nicely for you. Then I wanted to turn mine into a keychain, so I took my 1/4 inch hole punch and I punched a hole in the center at the top. You could also choose to turn this into a magnet so you wouldn't have to punch the hole, you could just shrink it first. And now we're going to move on to the fun part of shrinking it. So I grabbed some parchment paper and I laid it underneath my shape just so it doesn't stick to anything. And then I also used a tweezer. You can use any tool, but you'll want something in your left hand for when it curls up, so you can hold it down and it doesn't blow away on you. Then grab your heat gun and go over your entire shrink film, and you'll see it eventually start to curl up. You might have a little panicky feeling in the middle when it gets all curled and scrunched and it doesn't look like it's going to flatten out, but if you keep distributing the heat, it will flatten out for you. The only main thing you have to be concerned with when it is curling up is if it touches itself and gets stuck, then you'll want to stop the heat gun, get it unstuck, and then go back to heating it up again. And the last thing I do when I'm heating it up, once it's nice and flat, I flip over my parchment paper and I kind of press it down. This shrink film will be very hot at this point, so make sure to be careful, but if you just fold over your parchment paper, you can make it nice and flat. For my next one, I decided to repeat the same process, but I chose to color outside the lines a little bit. This way when I cut outside around it, there'll still be color in that area. I also took a Sharpie and personalized it. And then I also wanted to see what would happen if you took the shrink film and put it through the printer. So I printed my template straight on to the shrink film. I used a laser printer and it turned out pretty well. This one does smudge a little bit more when you're shrinking it, so you don't get such a perfect look, but it is a much quicker option if you're doing this project with little ones. So again, I repeated the same process, and then on this one I flipped it over and I also traced the outline onto the back side and colored the back side so you could see the llama on both sides. And now we've reached the point where we can turn these little things into keychains. So take 2 pliers, take your 10mm jump ring, open it up, and then you will slide your little creature in there. You'll loop on a keychain and then close it shut. And if you chose not to punch a hole in it, this would be a great opportunity for you to adhere a magnet to the back and make a fridge magnet. So you can use E6000 or glassy accents to attach a magnet.
To find all the supplies to make these, you can go to craftstrike.com and jump over to our projects tab.